Okay, this is our daily study of Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, the Mishnah, for those who have yard site for tonight, the 10th of Sivan. Wolf Braylove, Isidore Chalet, Jenny Cuminow, Robert Daniels, Francis DeLev, Celia Golden, Manuel Gullinson, Abraham Halpern, Rebecca Pardo, and Stanley Schiffman. May their memory be for a blessing. A link to the text of the Mishnah will be in the first comment below. We are up to chapter 3, Mishnah 6. Rabbi Chalafta ish Kfar Chananya Omer, Rabbi Chalafta, a man of Kfar Chananya, said, and Kfar Chananya is a town in the Galilee in Israel. Asara sheyoshvim le'oskin b'Torah shechina shuriya b'neihem. So 10 people who sit and study Torah, the divine presence rests amongst them. And just as an introduction, he's going to go through different group sizes and say how God is in all these group sizes who study Torah. First 10, then 5, then 3, then 2, and then even 1. Even one person who studies Torah, God is with them. So, the obvious question is going to be, well, what's the point of delineating different group sizes if God is with from 10 down to 1? So the implication seems to be, well, God is a little bit more with the 10, a little bit more with the 5, a little less so with the 5, less so with the 3, but really with all of them. So we'll see how that plays out. It's not clear in the Mishnah, but it's in the commentaries that I'll quote. Anyway, how do you know that God is with 10? 10 is a minion, right? Shenamar Elohim nitzav va'adas el. So it says in Psalms 82, God stands in the congregation of God. So Elohim nitzav, God is standing amongst the congregation. In a congregation, we know from other sources, we won't get into now, but a congregation is 10. And therefore God is standing amongst them. So that implies even if they're not davening, but they're just simply studying Torah, that God stands amongst that group. We should point out that, right, according to Orthodox tradition, only men count in a minyan for prayer, and that relates to different spheres of obligation. Only men are really have a share in the obligation to make a minyan. But for this purpose, for simply sitting and studying Torah, I would think women count in this group also. There's no reason why not. A group of women, a group of men and women together, 10 of them total, God, the divine presence is amongst them, of any Jews, which I think is the implication. Anyway, uminayin afilu chamisha, and how do you know even 5? Shenemar v'aguda soal eretz yisada. How do you know God is even in half that number? 5 people sit and study Torah, because it says in the book of Amos, and he has founded its foundation upon the earth. So you see the brilliance the rabbis had with wordplay, with homiletics. So that verse in Amos chapter 9 actually says that God's palace is in heaven, and this is one translation, and its foundation, the foundation of that palace is down on earth. But here they're interpreting it, Va'aguda so al eretz yisada. The word for foundation can also mean a faction, or like a bundle, and his foundation, his faction is established on earth, which is a way of saying, and this is also my interpretation, it's a little unclear, but what is a faction? That refers to part of a congregation, part of a minyan. So part, the default of part is half, right? So a faction of a minyan would be half. So that's how you know that God established his band or his faction upon earth, that God himself is established in any faction, meaning any half a minyan that sits and studies Torah. That's the brilliant way that we arrive at this. Okay, and it's very Jewish too, right? That we're talking about there's a minyan and there's a breakaway, there's a faction. That's we sort of sanctify the idea of factionalism, if you will, in this Mishnah, only in a very technical, verbal sense. Okay, but there's a word for half a minyan, which is interesting. Uminayin afilu shlosha, but how do you know that even when there are 3 people sit and study Torah? Shenemar b'kerev Elohim yishpot. The same proof text as the first verse, which talked about that God stands in the congregation, which is 10, but then it goes on to say, he judges in the midst of the judges, because it says God is b'kerev Elohim, which sounds like God is in the midst of God, or Elohim sometimes means plural gods, like the second commandment, Lo yelecha Elohim acherim al panai, you shall not have other gods. That word for God is plural, which seems to imply God of all the forces, that God's very name is plural, but the Hebrew will refer to him when he's God in the singular, even though the word Elohim is plural. But if it's other gods, it'll refer to it grammatically in the plural. But there's a third meaning of Elohim, which means judges, meaning authority figures. It could mean God, it could mean authority figures. So sometimes the rabbis interpret the word Elohim to mean judges, and the default court, the default Jewish court panel is three judges. You could also have one judge in some circumstances, There's a panel of 23, interestingly, that has to judge capital cases. And there's the ultimate Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin of 70, with a really 71st member who breaks the tie as well. So anyway, but the default Jewish Beit Din court is 3. So you see again the brilliant homiletics. So God is in the midst of the judges, which means 3, which really means that anytime 3 people sit, even not to judge but to study Torah, God is amongst that number. Okay. How do you know even 2? Shenemar az nibru yirei Hashem ish al re'ehu vayakshev Hashem vayishma. It says in Malachi, and then they that feared the Lord spoke one with another, and the Lord listened and heard. So people who are God-fearing, one speaks to the other, that's 2 people, one person speaking to the other, and God listens and hears. Okay, so God is with 2 people sitting and studying Torah. And the interpretation here is these people are all studying Torah, which is a rabbinic interpretation. But very empowering. It ends with, hey, if you're sitting in, right, this relates to me right now. I'm studying Torah as one person, although philosophically it's interesting, right? Depending on how many people watch the video, it raises questions about our virtual age. Are we now studying together? You're watching this on delay after I videoed it. Interesting philosophical discussion. But right now I'm sitting and disseminating this for many people in the future, in the near future when we send this out, but I'm studying on my own. And you sitting in your living room or wherever watching on your phone are also presumably studying this alone, right? But it's empowering. One person studying alone, God is with them too. Shenemar, v'chol hamakom asher azkiras shmi, avo elecha v'erachticha. It says in Exodus, in every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you, in the singular. In English, there's no difference between singular and plural, the word you, but in Hebrew there is. I will come to you every place where my name is mentioned, which again we refer to as the study of Torah, but could also mean prayer. Any place where you pray to God alone, God will come. Now I mentioned if God is in all these groups, what's the point of the different numbers? See, if he's with 10, he's with 1. So the commentaries sort of delineate, is the brilliance of the commentaries, just like the brilliance of the original rabbinic sages. No, there's clearly a hierarchy here. I mean, well, you could just say he's a little bit more with the 10 and a little bit less so with the 5. But how does that play into the text? So Kahati quotes Rabbi Yosef Yavetz, who brilliantly reads into every proof text. The proof text gets stronger with the higher numbers. So let's go to 1. Every place where I cause my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you. So with 1, it's just God comes and stops by and says hello. Like when you go to a simcha, if you go to a wedding, you don't even have time to stay, but you are a bar mitzvah, you shake the person's hand, okay, mazel tov, bye. That's what God does with 1 person. It's a quick hello, and then he's got other things to do. I will come to you and bless you, and then say goodbye is the implication. But with 2, it said those who fear God spoke to one another, and God, what does it say, listened and heard. So he doesn't just come and say hello and goodbye, he stays to listen a little bit. Okay, that's a little bit more. Now with the 3, what did it say? Bekerev Elohim Yishpot. God is amongst them, which implies not only does he stay to listen, but he's going to stick around for a while amongst them. Maybe he'll pull up a chair and sit down, so to speak, kaviyachol, as it were. Then the 5, what does it say? Va'aguda soal eretz yisada, and the foundation or his faction is fixed on the earth. So fixed implies something stronger. Not only is he pulling up a chair and sticking around, but he's actually going to stick around for a while, because how is it worded? It's firmly established upon the earth. And then finally, the 1 for 10 is the strongest word, Elohim nitzav ba'adat el. God is firmly standing. He stands in the congregation of God. So he's just standing there in a fixed way. Nitzav doesn't just mean standing. It means standing like a pillar, like you're really fixed there for a long time. And that's the strongest word of any of the proof texts. So really brilliant how the Mishnah doesn't even call attention to that, but there's clear, subtle implication of hierarchy. Okay, you can say the El Malay. El Malay Rachamim Shochen Bamiromim Hamitzei Menucha Nachon Al Kanfei Hashechina B'malos Kedoshim Torim Kizor Harakia Masirim Es Nishmos Kol Haskarot Shel Halayla Shalchu Li Olamam Ba'avur Shemispalim Bad Haskaras Nishmasam Began Eden Tehei Menuchasam Lachein Bal Harachamim Yasti Reim B'Seiser Kenafav Li Olamim B'Yitzror B'Tzor Achayim Es Nishmasam Adonai Unachlasam Yanuchu B'Shalom Mishkavasam and Omar Amen. And in English, O God, full of mercy, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the wings of the divine presence. the lofty levels of the holy and pure who shine like the glow of the firmament. For the souls of Wolf Braylove, Isidore Chalet, Jenny Cuminow, Robert Daniels, Francis DeLev, Celia Golden, Manuel Gullinson, Abraham Halpern, Rebecca Pardo, and Stanley Schiffman, in whose memory we study and pray. May their resting place be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the Master of Mercy shelter them in the shelter of his wings for eternity. May he bond their soul in the bond of life. Hashem is their heritage. May they rest in peace. And let us say Amen.